Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Client Side Chats. We have, again, a very special guest, Mr. Skipper Kendrick. Many of you out there know who Skipper is. And Skipper, of course, has his own firm, Kendrick Global Enterprises, and dealing with a lot of high level safety things and very detailed safety things. Skipper, I know you can tell us about that. But today we're going to have a discussion. We were just discussing this offline here about today's safety professionals, what they really need, and the strategic roles they now play within our collective organizations. What are your thoughts, Skipper?
Thank you again, James, for the opportunity. And again, we have been given a wonderful opportunity. And in this case, it came through the back door. If we would have been in Vegas, where we hold many of our ASSP meetings,
Right.
and we'd gone to the bookies, who would have bet that at this time last year, one of the key conversations globally and among businesses would be things like PPE and things like safety. And then lo and behold, who do they talk to? They talk to us, where we've been in the background and in many cases, rightfully or wrongfully so, pervade as those guys who do the training and bring coffee and donuts to the boring meetings. All of a sudden, it was perceived, and rightfully so, that we had something to bring to the table. And
Right.
we had information that maybe they didn't want, but at that point in time was needed. And for many, many safety professionals, it has opened the way and opened the door into the boardroom, into the plant manager's office, and into the business in and of itself, to be able to literally keep the doors open and to be able to be valued for what we bring to the table. And we've had many discussions, and we are seeing the eyes opening and the realization of that value
Right.
within the senior management level. And the key here is, now that we've got the foot in the door,
Yeah.
what are we going to do to solidify that seat at the table going forward? Well, at one point in time, this too shall pass. I don't know what quote unquote normal will be, or if there will ever be such a thing as normal. But it's just like we've seen in our businesses. It's just like we've seen the tsunami is there. We're riding the crest of the wave. And at some point in time, the sea is going to kind of level out. How do we, as occupational safety and health professionals, now take advantage of that entree and that entrance? And how do we keep our nameplate on the table and our seat around that table as we go forward? And I think that that's going to be an interesting discussion for many of us
Right.
as we go forward. Um, and I hearken back to an ASSP conference, in a professional development conference here in Dallas. And we had a gentleman who spoke with us. As a matter of fact, he was a last minute replacement. Uh,
Mm.
one of the CEOs didn't show up. Here's a guy who owns his own company, and talking about the value of the profession and
Mm.
what they, executive management leaders, need from us. And he was the hit of the session. The comments were surrounding risk and management systems and everything else. But this gentleman, Art Daniels, the president of Daniels Construction Company,
Hmm.
looked at it and was talking about his safety professional and what he needs of that person. And his comment was, what I need is for you to talk to me, but talk to me in my language. And he went on to say that he had interviewed a number of people for the replacement for his current safety professional. And he said those folks that talked to me about 1926, subpart A, ANSI, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that, he said most probably weren't going to get a second interview.
Oh,
He said,
wow.
I needed to know how you're going to contribute to the business. And what can you tell me? that I need to know. How can you make me smarter relative to the business and what we do? And, that was a unique perspective. And I, at that point in time, you almost got a standing ovation
Mm.
from that. But it's very, very sage and wise advice to us at this point in time. We've got an opening in the door. That opening was created by our fundamental aspects:
Hmm.
blocking and tackling,
Hmm.
PPE, industrial hygiene, sanitization, social distancing, all of that stuff that was brought on. But if we're going to remain in that seat, at least my personal perspective,
Hmm.
we're going to have to grow a little bit, and we're going to have to talk and continue the conversation from the business side of this rather than from the regulatory side. Regulations are not going away, they're going to
Right.
always be there. But in my own personal role, the greatest degree of success was when we stopped talking safety and started talking business and how safety could help the business. And the greatest time in my professional career was not when I reported to legal or HR, all of those, were when I reported directly to the senior vice president of worldwide business operations.
Ah.
And it was very, very interesting because it was a matrixed environment. I still reported to the director of EHS, but I also reported directly to the VP of Worldwide Operations.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because the director of EHS in that role was responsible for managing Skipper and keeping Skipper functionally at a level to contribute.
Right.
The VP of Operations was responsible and looked at me to how do you help me from a strategic? How does this thing of safety make sense in the business world? And I had the quote unquote dot in his organization for safety. Not
Ah.
that I was going to quote unquote do safety, but I was the one that was going to be the advisor, the counselor, the driver of the bulldozer to break down the barriers to assure that safety was done. And in that, I had to develop a quick understanding of what's going on around the table.
Hmm.
And that is also when a thing, thank goodness, a thing called ergonomics, which before that was
Uh-huh.
looked at as a health issue. But when we started peeling back the onion, not every time, but in a vast majority of the times when we dealt with ergonomics and we made the quote unquote fix, we also saw an increase in productivity, an increase in the quality of the product because they could pay more attention to the stuff that we had.
Right.
So, and looking at that, it's utilizing and developing that business acumen and talk to them in their language. And matter of fact, we're doing some things, and I stole this in terms of the language is what shoes are you going to wear?
Mm.
You wear the safety shoes when you're talking on the floor. You wear the safety shoes when you're talking to your safety committee. But you, in essence, got to change shoes when you get into the plant manager's office or the boardroom. And there's a different language. And looking at going forward, talking with many young folks at future leaders conferences and at ASSP student sections, there's a question that comes up, and I always tell the advisor who is a professor there, tell them what my answer will be. And is a master's degree worth it? And assuredly so. But which master's degree depends upon where you want to be.
Right.
If you want to be in that tactical, if you want to be in that functional role, and that's where you are, and we need a lot of people like that to be able to do that, then a master's in safety is a good direction.